Letters to the Northern Lights. In Aurora Hollow, where winter skies glowed with ribbons of green, pink, and blue, the Northern Lights were a constant presence. For Clara, they were more than a marvel. They were the only thing that felt alive in the quiet stillness of her days. Since her mother's passing, her home had grown unbearably silent. Her father, once warm and full of laughter, had retreated into himself, filling his days with work to avoid confronting their shared grief. Clara tried to reach him, but her attempts were met with distracted murmurs or tired sighs. One frosty December night, desperate for someone to hear her, Clara decided to write to the only thing that seemed to be listening, the lights. Dear lights, Mom used to say you were magic. I don't feel any magic anymore. If you're real, please show me a sign. Love, Clara. She folded the letter carefully, placed it in an old envelope, and set it on her windowsill. Clara awoke the next morning to find the envelope gone. In its place was a piece of shimmering paper, the ink glowing faintly like starlight. Dear Clara, we are here. Look to the sky tonight. The lights. That evening, Clara bundled herself in a thick scarf and stepped into the frosty yard. The auroras were more vibrant than she'd ever seen, moving in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, a cascade of waves, a starburst, and finally, a shape that looked like a hand reaching out. Her heart swelled. For the first time in months, she felt something close to joy. Encouraged by the reply, Clara began writing nightly letters to the Northern Lights. In one, she wrote about her mother's lullabies. In another, she described her loneliness at school, where she felt too different to belong. She even confessed her frustration with her father, who seemed like a stranger now. The replies came faithfully, each one offering words of comfort or quiet wisdom. The stars are singing with you. Keep listening. Sometimes people grieve in silence. Give him time. You are never truly alone. The sky watches over you. The letters became her lifeline, pulling her through the darkest days. One afternoon, while wandering the snowy woods, Clara discovered something peculiar, an old mailbox tucked beneath the branches of a frost-covered pine. Its surface was painted in swirls of green and purple, mirroring the auroras above. Curious, she opened it and found a bundle of letters inside. Each was addressed to the Northern Lights, written by villagers from long ago. One read, Dear Lights, thank you for lighting my way home during the blizzard. I will never forget your kindness. June. Her breath caught. That was her grandmother's name. She clutched the letter to her chest, suddenly feeling a connection to a past she'd never fully known. Clara shared the mailbox with a neighbor, Mrs. Greer, who had always spoken of the lights with reverence. Word spread, and soon the villagers began leaving their own letters in the mailbox. As the Northern Lights' magic spread through Aurora Hollow, the villagers' letters painted a tapestry of hopes, struggles, and dreams. Clara, now the unofficial keeper of the mailbox, often found herself deeply moved by their stories. One frosty morning, she delivered a reply to Mr. Eldridge, the elderly farmer. His letter had been simple but heartfelt. Dear Lights, Will my crops survive the frost this year? I'm afraid of losing the land my family built. The light's response read, Dear Mr. Eldridge, plant kindness, and it will bloom in unexpected ways. Unsure of its meaning, Mr. Eldridge began helping neighbors with their gardens and sharing what little he had left. When spring came, his fields flourished beyond expectation, nourished by the goodwill he had sown. Another reply touched the heart of young Felix, the aspiring musician. Dear lights, will anyone ever hear my songs? The light's reply encouraged him. Sing loud enough, and the world will listen. A few weeks later, Clara found Felix playing his guitar in the village square, drawing a small but captivated crowd. One evening, Clara noticed a new letter in the mailbox. The handwriting was familiar. It was her father's. Dear Lights, I feel like I've failed Clara. She deserves better. How do I fix this? David. Tears welled in her eyes as she read it. That night, the light's reply appeared on their dining table, glowing softly. Dear David, start by listening. She misses you. The next morning, her father sat beside her at breakfast, an awkward but earnest expression on his face. Clara, he began hesitantly, I've been distant. I know that, but I'd like to spend more time together. Maybe we can write to the lights together? Clara smiled, her heart warming. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. On the last night of the year, Clara wrote her most important letter yet. Dear Lights, thank you for helping me and for guiding our village. I think I'm ready to shine my own light now. Love, Clara. The reply came, golden and radiant. Dear Clara, you are already shining. Keep sharing your light. The lights. Inspired by the beauty of the lights and the magic they brought to her village, Clara decided to capture their essence in her art. One evening, she set up her easel by the frosted window, her room illuminated by the faint glow of a lantern. She opened her sketchbook, which was filled with small drawings of the auroras, but tonight felt different. This time, she wanted to create something bigger, something that reflected not only the light's beauty, but their impact on her life. She began with wide, sweeping strokes of green and blue, layering in hints of pink and violet. As the paint flowed onto the canvas, the image came alive, a vibrant swirl of colors, mimicking the way the auroras danced across the night sky. Memories surfaced as she worked, her mother's lullabies, her letters to the lights, her father's hesitant but genuine attempts to reconnect. She painted the emotions tied to those moments, grief, hope, and healing. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking. Exhausted but content, Clara stepped back to admire her work. The aurora on the canvas seemed to glow, capturing not just the light's magic, but the warmth they had brought to her heart. When her father saw the painting later that morning, his eyes filled with tears. It's beautiful, Clara, he said softly. She would be so proud. That winter, inspired by the mailbox and the light's replies, the villagers decided to hold a festival in honor of the Northern Lights. Clara suggested that they incorporate the letters into the celebration. She set up a display in the town square, showcasing her paintings alongside some of the most inspiring replies from the lights. Villagers gathered around to read them, sharing stories of how the letters had brought them hope and guidance. Mrs. Greer, the baker, shared her experience. "I wrote to the lights asking for courage to reconcile with my sister. They told me the sweetest things take time. It gave me the push I needed, and now she's here, helping me bake every day." The festival became a tradition, held every winter beneath the shimmering sky. Lanterns were lit and released into the night, carrying the villagers' gratitude and wishes skyward. Years later, Clara's paintings of the auroras found homes in galleries far beyond Aurora Hollow. People traveled from all over to visit her studio, which she'd named Sky Letter Studio, and to leave notes in her magical mailbox. One particularly snowy evening, a young girl visited the studio with her mother. She placed a letter in the mailbox and hesitated before asking, "Do the lights really write back?" Clara smiled gently. "They always do. Sometimes not in the way you expect, but they're always listening." After the girl and her mother left, Clara turned to her father, who was reading letters by the fire. "Do you think they know how much they've changed us?" she asked. Her father looked up, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the flames. "I think they've always known, Clara. They just needed someone like you to remind the rest of us." Above Aurora Hollow, the northern lights danced brighter than ever, their vibrant colors a reflection of the village's newfound unity and the legacy of one girl's letters.